Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you find yourself around the world. We're so happy you could join us here today. My name is Matt Nash, and I'm the Managing Director for Social Innovation at the Duke Innovation and Entrepreneurship Initiative, and I'm an adjunct professor of the practice at our Sanford School of Public Policy. On behalf of my colleagues here at Duke and our partners at UNICEF and the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, I'd like to welcome you to our virtual forum on social innovation, which is a week of inspiring programming celebrating social innovation in menstrual health and hygiene. If you're just joining us, please open the chat and give yourself a quick introduction to share your name and position, and love to hear from you in chat. So if you're not familiar, the Duke-UNICEF Innovation Accelerator launched in late 2019 with a call for scalable innovations in menstrual health and hygiene, particularly in East Africa, in collaboration with the UNICEF WASH team at headquarters and with UNICEF country teams in Burundi, Kenya, and Tanzania. And we selected 6 social enterprises to participate in this first cohort of the Accelerator. You're going to hear from 3 of these social enterprises today as part of this panel. Now, since February, we've been working really closely with all these enterprises to develop their capacity to scale their work and impact. We do this through skill building webinars, collaborative coaching calls with our skilled team, and by matching each team with seasoned mentors from around the world. And this virtual forum on social innovation this week is meant to be a celebration of our community and to welcome new faces, such as many of you from around the globe, into the fold. So I want to welcome you to today's panel session, Innovating for Girls in Uncertain Times, Periods Don't Pause for a Pandemic, which we're going to feature 3 of the amazing social enterprises in our first cohort. And in particular, I'd like to thank our colleague Danielle Kaiser of UNICEF and the MH Hub for organizing an exciting panel discussion this morning. She's really been the architect and curator of this panel, so she deserves our thanks. So just a quick moment for applause for Danielle for her work on this panel. What I'd like to do is introduce you to her. You've got an amazing moderator today. I'm so excited to introduce her to you, Kat Crisp. So Kat is a senior innovation specialist in UNICEF's Office of Innovation, leading the development of UNICEF's global innovation portfolios. One of the things I've been so excited about our partnership with UNICEF is because of the real commitment UNICEF has made to integrating innovation across the work it does. And it's been a real leader in innovation in the world of international development. I think they deserve special credit. And so we're so thrilled that Kat has been able to join us here today. Kat has a multidisciplinary background with degrees in both engineering and health and social care. And she's worked in the private sector as well as local government and development. Kat is passionate about social innovation and social entrepreneurship, having initially joined UNICEF's Office of Innovation to support the scale-up of Upshift, a youth social innovation program. So everybody, please join me in welcoming our moderator for today, Kat Crisp. Kat, over to you.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you for that introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is joining us. If you are just joining now, then please do open up the chat and introduce yourself. It's great to see so many people joining from all around the world. I can see Kenya, Tanzania, India, Rwanda. So welcome to all of you today. And thank you for inviting me to moderate what I hope will be a really exciting and insightful discussion. We've got 3 great panelists. At UNICEF, we are really excited to be working with Duke on this Accelerator program. And the topic today is very timely, so Innovating Forum with Girls. And just sort of as, to frame that topic, I suppose, innovation is often about preparing for the world of tomorrow. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone's tomorrow has changed at a pace which I think we could say that some had predicted, but no one had really planned for. So the world has really been turned on its head during 2020, which is creating huge challenges. So from a UNICEF perspective, we are risking reversal of decades of progress in areas such as immunization and nutrition. Almost every child on the globe has had their education disrupted, and we are seeing a disproportionate impact on girls. So increased risk of violence in the home, less likely to have access to devices and connectivity to keep learning, and the sort of heightened risk of girls not returning to school. as we've seen in previous pandemics, or epidemics rather. So, we have to address these risks, and where we don't have current solutions, we really have to innovate. But to innovate, we also need to see the opportunities that are being afforded by the pandemic. So one opportunity which is interesting for social enterprises is that UNICEF buys a lot of supplies, and with global supply chains disrupted, we are now have an innovation focus on local procurement and sourcing, which perhaps we wouldn't have had such a focus on had we not been in the middle of a pandemic. So this could be a very positive disruption that comes out of these times. And just looking slightly more specifically at some of the challenges relating to this topic of sort of menstrual health and hygiene. And here actually could perhaps Danielle, my colleague, share in the chat a link to sort of a UNICEF brief on mitigating the impacts of COVID-19 on menstrual health and hygiene, because this document has some really practical guidance to address some of the challenges that we've been seeing. And those challenges include sort of ensuring affordable MHH supplies are in place. So for healthcare workers, 70% of whom are women, for girls in schools, who might usually get their supplies through schools, for vulnerable women, so those living in refugee camps or institutions, again, who've had their supplies disrupted. And the other challenge is the wash facilities themselves. So prior to COVID, there'd been a big focus on community level, sort of wash or school level wash facilities, but now, household facilities are of great importance. The disruption to global supply chains, again, that's had a big impact on manufacturers being able to actually manufacture products. And then the disruption to all of core health services. So menstrual health, sexual reproductive health in particular are areas that risk being deemed non-core in a pandemic. So how can girls and young women get access to trusted information if they're at home? So that is one of the topics that we will be exploring today with our panel. And I'm really delighted to welcome our panel today. So we have 3 leaders in menstrual health in East Africa, and we're going to hear from them over the next sort of 55 minutes about the challenges and opportunities that the pandemic has caused for them, and how they have been using this opportunity of being part of the Duke-UNICEF Innovation Accelerator to respond to these very fast changing sort of circumstances. So I will briefly introduce each of the panel, and then going to ask them to introduce themselves and their organizations and mission. So we have Grace Françoise Nabisi. She is Executive Director of Sakode, a Burundian NGO promoting health and development of communities, and created washable and reusable sanitary pad, as you can see, which is uniquely designed with special straps to be worn with or without underwear. Then we have Hyacintha Nutukeyo, Nutuyeko even, sorry Hyacintha, joining us from Tanzania. She is CEO and founder of Kasole Secrets Company, which innovates to improve access to menstrual hygiene products and solutions for African girls and women. Created the Glory Sanitary Napkin, which is a disposable pad engineered with ultra-absorbent and naturally hypoallergenic bamboo fibre. And then we also have McGregor, or Mac Lenartz, who is co-founder and CEO of Lily Health, an AI-powered mobile chat that provides private and personal sexual and reproductive health advice with a focus on Kenya. So very warm welcome to all of you. Just before we sort of actually hand over to each of you, then I would just like to ask, so if everyone who is listening in the audience, can you please put any questions you have into the Q&A, so we can sort of take questions as we go, and we are hoping to have some time at the end sort of dedicated to questions. But please do put any questions you have as they come up. So many thanks. And now, sort of to set the scene, we'd like to ask each of the panel members to just give a brief introduction to their organisation, their mission, as they would have described it pre-pandemic, perhaps. So first of all, starting with you, Françoise, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you so much to everybody who is watching this. I'm so grateful to be here. My name is Grace Françoise Nibiti. I'm the founder and executive director of SACODE. SACODE is a local non-grassroots organization based in Burundi. It's in East Africa. It started in 2011, and I can't really tell you the whole story, otherwise we'll sleep here. I'm going to tell you only about Agateka sanitary pads, which gave me the opportunity to be among these wonderful innovation accelerator. Agateka, as Catherine said, Agateka means dignity in Kirundi. And I innovated Agateka because I wish all women and girls all over the world could live their menstruation normally with dignity. And that's what we do at SACODE. Mainly, we manufacture Agateka, which can be worn with or without an underwear. And we also give education in schools, and we go through school clubs. And among community, we go through village savings and loans associations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Françoise. Welcome today. Mac, would you like to share sort of some background in terms of introduce yourself and Lily Health?
Sure. Hi, Catherine, and hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Myself, my background, I've been working mostly in Africa on sort of mobile-based innovation, previously a lot with mobile money, and then got into Lily Health. So how sort of we ended up here, myself and my co-founders originally had this idea or saw that menstrual tracking apps were becoming very common and used in the West, or US and Europe. And so we also already knew that apps weren't commonly used in lower income countries, especially in East Africa. So we had this genius idea to sort of offer a menstrual tracking service via SMS. This was about 3 years ago. And then at some point, we opened it up to enable users to message any question they had around menstrual health to the service. And from there, we found that there's a lot of demand for a lot of different information, but particularly around fertility. So that's what we've been focusing on since then. And we've also moved into sort of moved with the times as digital adoption has increased. So now lots of people use things like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and we deliver our services over all of those as well. Maybe I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mac. And Hyacintha, welcome today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat. Hello, everyone. My name is Hyacintha Ntuyeko. I'm from Tanzania, and I'm a social entrepreneur for 10 years now. So I've been inspired by my personal challenges in menstruation, and it was more on the menstrual cramps, but as well as the quality of the sanitary pads. So this really inspired me to be an entrepreneur immediately after I was done with my university. So 7 years ago, I founded a company, and this is the social mission company. It's called Kasole Secrets. And the company creates positive change in 3 ways. Number one, we develop and sell innovative glory sanitary napkins, which are embossed with bamboo charcoal. And therefore, our pads are antibacterial, antiviral, and antimicrobial, but also they have very high quality. And number 2, we provide menstrual health education, which includes boys and men. And these initiatives are funded by the proceeds from our business. So every year we collect 10% of our revenue and invest back on the social mission, the program that we do on menstrual health. And number 3, we encourage menstrual health innovation within communities. And we partner with local and international organizations. And this is how we grow our social impact. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. So we can see that although we have 3 organisations that are united in terms of mission and focus, but 3 quite different types of organisation in terms of how they have come to start focusing on that sort of mission. So one of the major reasons that each of your organisations was selected to be part of the Duke-UNICEF Innovation Accelerator is because of your plans to scale your impact around MHH. However, when that was set out in late 2019, we had no idea what was on the horizon during 2020. So can you please each share a little about how COVID-19 has affected those plans that you set out with when you initially applied to the accelerator? So we'll start with Mac here, because I suppose as Lily Health is a mobile application, some of us might think that impact was perhaps quite limited, but was this your experience? What has your experience been over the last few months?
Sure. I think there are kind of sort of benefits to us as a company, but also difficulties. So the biggest challenge when it became clear that the world was changing was just the uncertainty. So it was quite difficult or it was just unclear. Do we sort of keep our heads in the sand and keep building what we were always intending to build? Or would the world be completely different by the time we were done? Because the only thing we knew for certain was that everything was changing very, very quickly. So it was kind of the first few months were very frustrating, just in the sense that we had very little confidence that we were pursuing the right path, just again, because we didn't know what the future would hold. On the other hand, because we're a digital product, it's on mobile, in terms of like our core service delivery, it all went smoothly, luckily, and sort of there was a increased, I think, a growth increase in the value proposition of our core, the idea of our product, because all of a sudden it was even less appealing than it was before to go to a hospital, or more difficult, shall I say. So users could use us on the phone instead.
Thank you, Mac. So the lack of crystal ball and the lack of access to information, still a huge problem, even with a product that sort of is very needed at that point in time. Hyacintha, I know you had big scale up plans for 2020. What has been the impact from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think COVID really insights a new perspective of my business, because before COVID, I used to believe that being in the business of selling menstrual products is a product that is going to be needed anyway. So there's no any single day that I won't be able to sell these products, because women will continue to menstruate and women will continue to need this product. But it was completely different when COVID came in. And the COVID really affect our company in all 3 areas where we focus for working. So this 2020 was supposed to be a very great year for us, with many plans of scaling up. But with COVID, we couldn't really able to reach our sales targets as we planned in the end of 2019. And the business really went down. We couldn't even be able to sell pads as we used to sell. And it was so much surprise, like, what are women using? This is the product they need to have every month. But now business was very, very down. But on the other end as well, the cost of raw materials went very expensive. And this was because to this the high demand, and this was the sudden high demand of the face mask. So we couldn't be able to do anything, because without raw materials we don't have pads. But On the other end, on the menstrual health programs that we are running in schools were discontinued because schools were closed, and then we couldn't really able to do anything. And of course, we didn't have any that kind of plan of saying that maybe we start going digital and things like that. We did not had that, so we had to remain in a shock, trying to see like what would be the future of this business. To be honest, I would say that it was very, very tough moment for me as a leader, and the company was just remained with these fixed costs, while the income that we were generating during COVID time was very, very, very minimal. So yeah, for us, that's how COVID hit us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyacinth. So yes, I mean, I think the fundamental assumptions that many of us make have been absolutely questioned this year, and huge challenge for you in terms of those fixed costs and the sort of the manufacturing, the supply chain, all of those things. Yeah, really, really big challenges that you've been facing over the last few months there. And sort of Françoise, so Sacodé is a community-based organisation in a country with a very sort of weak healthcare system. I mean, how have you been navigating the pandemic, and what has been the sort of implications for your work as an organisation?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to tell you first what we used to do before COVID, so that you can understand how we pivoted. Before COVID, we used to have productions, and all our production was related to Agateka sanitary pads. That means the production people used to do only Agateka sanitary pads and all the components. And in our education program, we used to educate using SMS mass messaging, using videos, using leaflets. And among community, we used to go set up a Village Savings Loans Association so that people can come together and do business. But when COVID started, we had to stop everything because it was really very scary. And because and that is somehow related to maybe to the civil war, which has taken a long time here in Burundi. And so after noticing that there was a huge need in hospitals related to lack of PPE, I mean protection for staff, medical staff, they didn't have enough masks, they didn't have enough gowns, enough medical tunics. So I said, no, now let's stop doing pads, we're going to do something. And we started making masks, we started making gowns and medical tunics, which we distributed in medical facilities. And concerning education, we stopped sending all those SMS we used to send about menstrual health and sexual reproductive health. And we started sending SMS, educational SMS related to COVID, how they should protect themselves, symptoms, and because there were a lot of rumors, so we were sending those SMS so that we can break all those rumors. And concerning community, because in Burundi, majority of our beneficiaries don't have running waters in their households, so we had to teach them how to build those traditional tippy taps so that they can be able to wash their hands. That means all our plans related to scaling were put aside because I felt that we should step in and do something to fight that COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Françoise. So seeing real kind of pivot there to address the needs of your users and the needs of sort of people around you, with the both the sort of PP, the tippy taps, and the sort of using your channels and your relationships with the community in terms of sort of education, but on a slightly different focus. Thank you all very much. So sort of moving on to a slightly different topic now, which is, so we've talked about the challenges for each of you sort of as leaders of your organizations. what about the challenges? And I think you just started to touch on this, Francois, the challenges and sort of opportunities that you've seen in terms of women and girls in your community. So what has the impact been on people's lives? You know, I talked in the intro about some of the real challenges, but have there also been opportunities and sort of any positive impacts that you've seen? You know, how can you bring this data to life for us as well a bit more, I suppose? You know, and we know now that, for example, the situation of returning to education is quite different across different countries. So the experiences are really diverging. Perhaps we could sort of go first of all to Hyacintha, and just sort of, you know, what are the impacts that you've seen in terms of sort of girls' access to menstrual hygiene in Tanzania?
Yeah, thank you. For me, I think COVID found every one of us unprepared, and for women and girls, it was even double. I could say, like, the sudden closure of schools in Tanzania exposed a good number of girls to unhygienic menstrual materials. Yeah, we got an opportunity to visit one school with disabilities immediately after they have opened schools, and we wanted to understand what were the challenges that they faced during the COVID break. And all the girls that we interviewed, and these are the girls of already starting menstruation, they say that they really struggled to access proper menstrual products, and therefore they opted to use whatever they was available at the time. And when we also interviewed the teachers, then they said at that time of sudden closure of schools, their top priority was to ensure all the students got fair to return home and not otherwise. So they did not even think of things like menstrual pads or menstrual products. They were just focusing on, let's get the fair, and these students has to go home, and also their parents were like wanted to get their kids back home. So I was trying to look on the current situation of Tanzania, and this is due to the 2020 national research on menstrual health and hygiene. And it showed that 72% of girls do not have adequate knowledge on menstrual health and hygiene, while 60% of girls cannot afford to buy commercial menstrual pads or menstrual products. But also the research showed that 61.9% of the girls received information about menstruation for the first time in classrooms. So when we look at the distribution of these 61% of these girls, we see like 15.3% they receive this information from the reading materials, 12.1% they receive from outside the schools, 8.6% they receive from school clubs, and 2.1% they receive from other sources. So with this current situation of the country due to this national research, it is evident that the sudden and long break of school due to COVID doubled the menstrual challenges for girls and women in many aspects. But however, you know, as the matter of fact that COVID has negative impact, but also it has positive impact when it comes to the WASH. We do have programs in 6 schools. In what can I say? It's not town area. I don't know. I don't remember but it's not up country, but somewhere outside the town area. So we do run menstrual programs in 6 schools. And when we went for the first time to implement the program in around January to February, 100% of schools that we are implementing these programs before COVID, they did not have soap, and 83% of these schools did not even have water in the toilet. But our visit after they have opened the schools, we found that 100% of in the toilet. So this showed that also there was some like emphasis from the higher level to make sure that you have to comply, and it was possible for the wash facilities to be improved to comply with the COVID. But also in terms of business, there was a new business opportunities to women and girls whom were the majority manufacturers and selling agents of locally made soap, sanitizer, reusable face masks, buckets. So these was having very high demand in the country, and of course, these are the business which mainly done by women and girls. So COVID also had a positive impact on them, but also the high demand of things like lemons and ginger in Tanzania really benefited a good number of women and girls who are engaging in business of selling vegetable and fruit. So for me, I would say that there was a positivity and also the negativity when it comes to the challenges for COVID to women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyacinth. That adds a lot more kind of colour around the sort of stats that you can see written on a page. I mean, I think as educators were shutting schools, the full implications perhaps of that on sort of girls' menstrual hygiene and things will not have been top of mind for them. So sort of really sort of delving into that and seeing the implications of that and the negative implications of that. But then on the other side, the sort of the positives and the business opportunities, the opportunities for innovation and things that come out of these situations, and being positioned to sort of be able to take advantage of those. Very, very interesting mix there. Great, sort of Françoise, I mean, you work sort of, you've talked already about some of the sort of really deep work you do with your communities, and the women and girls that you work with. I mean, what would you sort of add? What have you been seeing in terms of impacts on women and girls, and sort of conversely also the opportunities perhaps that we might not have necessarily immediately expected?
Yeah, thank you so much. As I mentioned before, our production slowed during COVID, and sometimes we had to stop it. But after a while, I realized that women and girls keep having their periods. And Burundi is one of the 3 countries, I think, in the world who never had a lockdown. And for that, let's start doing our part again, even though it was a bit hard to do both. So, and we did pads at the same time, and we did gowns and medical tunic and masks. And one of the opportunity I could say is that some organization had that we were making those PPEs, and they made orders from us, which was good for those people working in production. And of course, I can't say I didn't see so much opportunities during COVID, but we also learned something, because before we even started to make those masks and gowns and medical tunics, I had to call on some of my friends at Johnson & Johnson to help me know how we can really make a mask which can be good, which we can give to our community. That means we didn't learn a lot. We need to do something else. We need to do something new, which we never thought we were supposed to do. And also about education, because we had those tools which were already there. We had other organizations who were coming to us, wanted to use our SMS platforms, organizations like CARE, Iprozarud, all those. They were coming to ask us if they can give us their beneficiaries so that we can send to them our messages, which means it also created somehow a kind of partnership which we never had before, and that was another opportunity. But also, because as I said, we started making both Agateka sanitary pads and the PPEs, which means I had to think how to open another production center, which is going to do only that. And actually, the other opportunity I got is that one of my my donors, Grand Challenges Canada, I saw an attendee here. They accepted to sponsor so that we can have that production of PPEs and masks and things we never planned before. And that was another opportunity because now people in Burundi, they know we're making those masks and gowns. So they're coming to us to have whatever they want when it comes to PPEs. Yeah, those are the kind of opportunities I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francoise. So yeah, a lot of having to think fast on your feet and change your plans. And sort of, Max, sort of to you, sort of on this question. I mean, you must have a lot of data through the Lily Health. I mean, what have you found that this is telling us about the experience for girls and young women through the pandemic?
So we have about 200,000 users in East Africa. So the data points I share all we really know is that's the data of our users in East Africa, which may or may not be reflective of the whole. But sort of three things. So a higher frequency of menstrual cycle irregularity. We have that data, so that's easy. We can just see more reported stress, and then lastly, a sort of less traditional healthcare is available than pre-COVID. So just as a simple example, a lot of what we end up doing is telling our users when they do need to go to a hospital and seek care. And now more than pre-COVID, we're getting information back from our users. I went and they told me to come back in 3 weeks, which is really horrible because usually when we're telling our user to go to the hospital, it's because they really need to get immediate medical care. So we talked to less me, but more the health professionals on my team, sort of brainstorming theories around why we're seeing what we see. The lack of traditional healthcare is obvious, but in terms of the stress and more so the menstrual cycle irregularity, so we have, well, obviously the stress of COVID, et cetera, but the other thing is economic impact in Kenya. So most of my team all sort of selected that as their best guess, as sort of the cause for what we're seeing. And the idea there is that either people really do have essentially less food than they had before, or they're stressed about, maybe they still have their same caloric intake, but they're quite stressed about where their caloric intake is going to come from in the future. And as a result, that's extremely stressful situation, and it's resulting in sort of painful changes to women's bodies. So that is what we see, and sadly, there are no sort of obvious, I think you asked for data points and opportunities originally, Catherine, so there are no obvious opportunities for us that we see, but definitely changes.
Thank you, Mac. You're challenging the sort of title for this webinar there in terms of periods don't pause for a pandemic. It's the data obviously that you have is really highlights the kind of some of the unseen impacts, I think, both in terms of, you know, what impacts, physical impacts this is having on women and girls that are not necessarily the obvious ones and not ones that are talked about or sort of shared, and then the sort of probably more widely known, the sort of impacts on other health services that we are sort of seeing across the board. So we are getting some questions through. I think I'm just, so if the panelists have a chance in between to sort of look at some of the kind of Q&As, if there's anything you can pick up and just kind of answer by tapping away, that would be brilliant on the Q&A. We've got another couple of sort of more structured questions before we go to a couple from the audience at the end. So you are all part of the Duke-UNICEF sort of Accelerator. And we've talked a lot about all of the challenges that you've been facing. And just would be really, really helpful to think about, to have your reflections on what has helped, what has been the support either through the Accelerator or elsewhere that has helped you to navigate those changes from the kind of initial kind of panic, I suppose, of the world's changing, we don't know what's happening, through to then, some of the changes that Francois, for example, you were talking about in terms of really changing your whole sort of manufacturing setup and, your kind of target audience and things as well. So we will go sort of first to Francois with that question, please.
Yeah, I will never have enough words to say thank you to this Accelerator, because I have really learned a lot. Thank you so much. And being part of this Accelerator, and with all the knowledge I got, with the tools, the networking I acquired through webinars, through the coaching calls, it really gave me, it helped me to shape my Sakode's ecosystem. I saw one question about ecosystem. I'm going to answer about that later. But when you really know your ecosystem and you know whom to go to, and you know who can help you, where you can get information, it's very easy than standing alone, than knowing what to do. So I'm very grateful for this Innovation Accelerator, because it gave me a lot of knowledge, a lot of connections, and a lot of tools which I can use to be able to face all kinds of challenges while you're doing business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francois. So that sense of not being alone in terms of the challenges that you're facing, which I think as a leader of an organization where everyone is looking to you for the answers in these times, must be, it's an incredibly stressful sort of situation to be in on so many different fronts. So Hyacintha, the same sort of question to you in terms of how you have navigated some of these challenges, how the sort of Innovation Accelerator has supported you in that, what other support you have found useful.
Yeah, thank you so much. For us, we really didn't have anything to pivot or mitigate. We were just waiting for the situation to become better. So, however, we used that empty time to build the leadership structure of the company. So, for instance, because we didn't have these ambitions of driving sales as we used to in January, February, then this time we really used to conduct training for managers on leadership, but also reviewing and put together our financial policy, our HR policy, looking on our implementation plan, screening on the potential partners. So those are the kind of the thing that I would say that COVID has really given me time to just sit down and reflect. I would say that it took COVID for us to do that, because if it wasn't for COVID, we would have been very, very busy chasing goals and targets. But personally, I would say that being in an accelerator was of a great relief for me, especially during this COVID time. I remember there are times as a leader of my organization, I felt so confused. Like I didn't know what to do at all. Like waking up in the morning and I feel like, oh my goodness, I don't want it to be morning. I just want to continue sleeping, because I was in so much uncertainty, looking at my business that it's now looking like it is really going to shut down, and I didn't know how to rescue it. So being in an accelerator was, for me, was a very, very powerful thing. And attending this series of webinars that the accelerator prepared for us made me gain hope and fresh energy, ready to face the world again. And webinars like capacity building plan, behavioral economics was very, very powerful to me. And of course, I was able also to get access to these management books that I was get via Duke-UNICEF programs, and this was on how to manage to change the world. So all these tools were very powerful, and it helped us to continue to strategize on how best we can make this organization survive. Like when they give reports on the organization that have been collapsed, we all wanted to see our organization was not in the list. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hyacinth. And that's sort of, I guess, the moment of reflection, but then that network again being so key for you. Mac, same question to you.
Sure. In terms of, did you want me to touch on sort of our initial building COVID stuff and then not launching it?
Yeah, I think go for that, and just
Okay.
the kind of like how, and how
Okay,
you've had,
perfect.
also how you've used then the support network around you. But yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay, sure. So I alluded to this earlier in terms of like when COVID first became a thing and we didn't know what to do, we just knew the world was changing. So one of the things we did was we rushed sort of headlong into let's build some great digital tools to help people understand COVID. And of course, at that time, everyone wanted to know sort of like what were the signs, or am I at risk, et cetera, et cetera. And so we built some digital tools. We borrowed heavily from some governments in Europe, and then we decided not to do anything with them, and they never went live because in Kenya, at least, there started to be a big problem of misinformation, and the Ministry of Health announced that you shouldn't distribute any information that hasn't come directly from the Ministry of Health. And at that time, the information from the Ministry of Health was quite limited. So it was a little bit frustrating and painful, but we just, the stuff we built never saw the light of day, and we continued focusing on our core product. 5 months down the road, it turns out that's totally fine. It's probably a good thing we kept just focusing on our core product. In terms of the sort of support and what's been really valuable to myself and I think us as a company, being in the Accelerator, I think as a startup, it's really easy to get in like a rut of being in a, and maybe for some good reasons, being sort of like in a silo of it's you and your co-founders and your company versus the whole world, and you're doing everything your way and creating everything new, especially in, I think, the technology sector. And what has been really great in this program has been kind of learning that, or being reminded that we're not the first people trying to build something new, and we're not the first people trying to build something new with an objective of positive social impact and sustainability. And then two, related to that there are these frameworks that already exist that people have used, and then other people have studied and developed intelligent ways of thinking about approaches to success and achieving your objective. So for us, it's been really valuable to sort of pull ourselves out of this mindset of like, we're doing something new and different, and thus we're inventing everything along the way, and more to saying, okay, what is our end objective? And then what is sort of the playbook or the list of possible ways to get there, which has been, I think, similar to Hyacinth and Grace, sort of like a burden released off of my shoulders, and I think my co-founders as well, because yeah, it's a lot less stressful when you realize that there are multiple ways to get to where you want to go.
Thank you very much, Mac. And there again, sort of touching on that theme of the support network, I guess, that the Accelerator has given each of you as founders and leaders going through that sort of very, that kind of peer network, going through a really challenging time. And then also I'm guessing what might feel like a slightly painful but a kind of an important learning in terms of the kind of building something but then not being able to launch it, even though it's, it feels kind of that it should be the right thing to do, but that there are other things at play which put the brakes on that. I've got one final question for each of you before we go to just what hopefully should have time for a couple of questions from the audience. So just thinking a bit about sort of innovation in sort of times like these, and the advice that you would share with sort of other innovators and social entrepreneurs. So sort of going first back to you, Mac, actually. So as a kind of a digital innovator, what would your key advice be to those who are listening who are also in the kind of digital innovation space, or who might be interested in that as a space if that isn't their kind of core area of expertise?
Spend all the time in the world and be 100% clear on what problem you're trying to solve before you start building solutions. I think in the technology world, it's especially easy to sort of fall in the trap of building things that do things, but never really stopping to think about, is this really useful for someone? And so the more clearly that you can really know the problem you're solving, the easier it is to make a great solution.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that in terms of problem first, tech second. It's very easy to get carried away with kind of exciting tech.
Yeah, sorry, just one more point. In my introduction, I used the word genius idea, and then I realized I forgot to make fun of myself. But that's the point I was trying to make, is we were excited by a technology idea that didn't really have any grounding in need.
Brilliant, thank you. So Hyacinta, sort of as a social innovator and sort of female founder in Tanzania, you're a real sort of role model. And what have you learned as an innovator during this time?
Yeah, for me, I think I'll say two things. Number one is never afraid to ask for help. You'll never know how people are willing and happy to extend their hands to help you sort out what you're facing. But also the second thing I'll say, as much as we continue to grow our business, let's not forget to invest in social capital as well. So I wouldn't have known its impact until end of April when I asked my staff to stay home without payment because we couldn't afford to continue paying them. And they responded with confidence that they will continue to work without payment. So that was very profound to me. And I felt so much uplifted knowing that I do have people who are willing to put on my shoes and walk the walk with me. So yeah, so that's my advice. Invest on the social capital as well, so that one day they will water you back. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyacinta. And that says a lot about you as a leader and your mission and what you have inspired your sort of staff to do there. So to Francoise, sort of a similar question. I suppose you have pivoted at pace in terms of responding to those needs that you've seen. What would your advice be to organizations that are doing that kind of immediate kind of, that change of direction that hadn't been within your plans at all? What's your advice?
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, I would say that I think challenges will be always there. Now we're having COVID, we have had things before, and we can't say that the world will be just very nice and beautiful. So the key word is resilience. So as long as there is a challenge, and you accept to do your part to overcome the challenge, and that means that you open first your mind, then you open your heart, and you do what you can, you do your part. And when you do your part, it means you're opening doors to other people to come and join you, and you can scale what you have innovated and what you're giving the world overcome the challenge. And the main word, as I said, is resilience, because I believe challenges will be always there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think you've all shown immense resilience in your leadership of your organisations over the last sort of nearly 6 to 9 months now. So thank you very much. I think we do have time for just a couple of questions. I think there have been quite a few questions coming through, but there's a couple here I would like to sort of pick up on. So one is whether there is a specific sort of factor in your country, either institutional, policy or law, that has strengthened your sort of implementation of what you're doing in the sort of innovation in the MHH space, or what has been helpful. And that could be related to sort of MHH, it could be related to sort of social enterprise structures, or kind of how you set up organizations. But just if there's one thing that you think has been particularly helpful, or is there one thing you would like to change that you think would really benefit you? So Francois, should we go sort of first to you with that question?
Yeah, of course, once you are in a country, you can't do anything actually once you don't have approvals from the government and from policymakers. And in Burundi, I didn't have a chance to say that because we don't have enough time. I'm grateful because now anything related to menstruation is starting to be spoken loudly, which was not there before. And when UNICEF supported the implementation of norms and standards of infrastructures in schools, I was invited to actually the whole chapter related to menstrual hygiene management in school. I'm the one who wrote it. And I was grateful because the government, the Ministry of Education approved what I wrote. But unfortunately, because of lack of means, I can see, but I hope that one day what I wrote is going to be implemented, because I can see that really schoolgirls are really struggling when they're having their menstruation in schools. Yeah, I can share that. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing there, that sort of first step to creating this sort of change in terms of actually having a plan in place, but now the actual implementation. Sort of, so sort of same to sort of Hyacinth, I think there is that, whether there's a particular factor that, strengthens the implementation, sort of institution, policy, law.
For me, I would say that there is a very huge shift from where we started to where we are right now. I remember when we pioneered the celebration of Menstrual Hygiene Day in 2015 in Tanzania for the first time. It was very, very challenging. Everybody was like, this is crazy. Like, even the media houses are like, we can't give you airtime to talk about this. But the more we kept insisting and trying to advocate for menstrual health management, the more they start to understand it, the more they start to embrace. And you could even say that even when you look back, there were very limited fundings in the area of menstrual health and hygiene. But now when you look in the country itself, the number of fundings into that area, even more partners working into that area. And personal, as organizations, we have been given opportunities to participate in number of government activities, like we reviewed the curriculum for the out-of-school adolescents, where now they had their curriculum to educate sex and reproductive health, but now they wanted the menstrual health component, and we reviewed it and we put our comments. But we also been participating in number of meetings in the high level of the government, giving our ideas on how we would like the menstrual health hygiene to look like in this country. So for me, I could say that Tanzania is really catching up, and I hope there'll be more bigger thing that will even come ahead, because even the political will now is very good. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think we are now at time, so I think we are going to probably have to wrap up. So I would just like to sort of extend a huge thank you to all of our three panelists, Hyacinta, Francoise and Mac. Huge thank you to everyone who has attended. To colleagues at Duke for sort of hosting this whole week, of everything through to the kind of the planning, through to the kind of tech side of it, to Danielle for briefing us all, for being, you know, kind of really bringing this panel together. So a big thank you to everyone. Just a few sort of, I suppose, concluding points. I mean, over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, you know, we've really been in quite an unprecedented situation. On the surface, the whole world has been sort of impacted by the pandemic, but actually, when you scratch underneath, there are kind of 7.5 billion different experiences of that. And you know, in every country, the COVID-19 has highlighted inequalities. So whether it's in sort of menstrual health and hygiene, access to healthcare, food, online learning, you know, that's really been, you know, one of the sort of dreadful side effects that we've seen. And I think, you know, this has come through very much in what we've heard from our panelists today. And, you know, but what we would like to say is thank you for showing us those different models for addressing those inequalities. And, you know, thank you for showing your sort of leadership in that and for working together with sort of UNICEF and Duke. And, you know, whether you are listening today from sort of Kenya or from North Carolina, you know, really don't forget that the sort of social innovation and social enterprise can be such a powerful tool for change in your local communities. So thank you to the panelists today for inspiring us with your stories.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.